Next up, we have Eric Garcin, and Eric is from Suez, and he's going to be telling us about setting the scene, high-level long-term planning for utilities. So welcome to the stage, Eric.
Thank you. Hi again, everyone. All right. So yes, I'll be setting the scene and talking about high-level long-term planning. So there's a few things that we've heard so far. So you will find a bit of that too. And yes, it's for utilities, but it's looking at broadly at the challenges and what all of the stakeholders can bring into the equation. So next, please. So first, the context. No need to remind ourselves that challenges are there, and a lot of pressure, obviously, on our planet, on our society, and I'll be talking more specifically about Australia here and the specific case here at home. So, what it means in terms of infrastructure planning. Sorry, not so fast. So these are the high level, I would say, constraints that the planning needs to operate within. So obviously, the first driver is managed growth, which is not the case everywhere. So, but here definitely a challenge. Climate change, a strong one. Building more resilience into our systems. Ensure compliance. So now that's a very important, because all of these planning and investment decisions are under the pressure from governing bodies to deliver compliance at a minimum cost. So that's the capex constraints. And then what we see more and more is the reduction of the carbon footprint. That's a common theme, and that's becoming a reality in some of the decision making process around this infrastructure. Next, please. So if we go a little bit more into the practical challenges around the exercise of planning, first there's a lot of it. I mean, the challenges we see here require significant investment, and that's also why we're talking so much about financing. The other one is that we've got a fairly strong or solid infrastructure base. So it was reminded during our panel discussion that not all of it is in great shape. But that's a little bit more complex to plan around this existing asset and trying to cater for the future while dealing with what we have today. And the last one I've mentioned here is the emergence of TOTEX. Now, everybody wants to do TOTEX. The reality is, I think we don't see real TOTEX decision making so often, but I think it needs to drive the priorities and to drive the decision making. So what we need to achieve here is basically to make each dollar must go further. So we've heard that before. Do more with less. So that's really what the challenge is, and that's really what the expectation is around the planning. Now the question is, to do that, how far ahead are we planning, and are we considering I would say everything that's going to be and become a challenge in the future. So I've put here a few of them, and I don't know if the screen is good enough for you to see them, but definitely, from our international experience in Suez, we can see what most utilities internationally are dealing with today, and we strongly believe that a fair few of these are going to be challenges of the future. So I'll speak of a few here. So biosolids. The diversion requirements from landfill really are only going to increase. What we have to is the estimating or taking into account the footprint of the transport. I mean, in some of the metro, there's very significant transport associated with getting rid of these biosolids. But going further, looking at what are in the biosolids, and we had a case from Gold Coast. So micropollutants, microplastics, which are becoming an issue, and that's life underwater. That's also a strong one, and that's a real issue in terms of what are we going to do with these biosolids and how are we designing the assets to deal with that. Another one, carbon footprint. This one I've got extensive ramifications, so I've put in on that map too. Wastewater effluents. what's gonna be in the future. Ocean outfalls, the quality parameters today in some places in Australia, it's very soft. Definitely, that's going to be tighter in the future. Again, micropollutants, microplastic, reuse. We do need to do more. Is that going to be compulsory? Are the assets that we are planning today going to be compatible with the requirements that we'll face in the future? Water quality. I've put a little bit of drinking water here because there are interfaces with reuse. Emerging contaminants, yes, but disinfection byproduct. Australia is one of the last one to move on disinfection byproducts in the world. That's going to be a part of the equation in the future. And as you can see, I've tried to represent here, they're all interlinked, and that's one of the challenges of planning. How do we plan for an asset? How do we design an infrastructure to deal with as many of these potential issues, or to future-proof the investment that we are making today? That's really that's what's here in that question, and I think that's a challenge for everyone. Next, please. Now that's a bit of a doom and gloom slide, but positive is solutions do exist. So the first point I want to talk about here is regulatory framework. That's really, I believe, and compared to other places, and I'm comparing here to the EU, for example, a solid long-term regulatory framework really will support and improve planning. All of what I've mentioned earlier will be evolutions of the regulation. So how much visibility do we have? That plays a big part in terms of reducing the risk, attracting potential other sorts of financing, and helping the planning to allow that. Now, the reality is, I think locally here, one of the reasons why regulation maybe doesn't move as fast is that because it's probably going to cost a lot of money to try to achieve that. Now, that's a bit of a vicious circle, because if we can deliver what's required for less, then it's less of a roadblock for regulation, and therefore we could see further. But we need to have visibility over 10, 20 years, and it is possible. The second point is plan holistically. We need to, I think, spend more time on the question, on challenging the question, and not jumping to the solution. So we've heard a lot of concept during yesterday, today, multi-purpose infrastructure. As you can see on the slide before, there are many challenges to address. So how can we get the most value out of an asset? How many purposes can we serve? How future-proof can we? How is it going to sit within the systems? What are the interfaces between this asset and the rest of the system? What is the system look like in 20 years, taking into account all of these constraints and drivers? So more time on the question, and then the solution will come, and that's the third one. Technologies are there. There are plenty of innovative technologies that can solve all of these problems of today, and a good half already of the problems of tomorrow. We're doing some great things in Switzerland on micropollutants. We're taking performance guarantees on microplastic removals. So the solutions are there, but let's not focus too early on the solutions. Let's make sure that we are, I would say, putting the right questions for the specific challenges of a region or city. So next, please. Yeah, my final one is pinching with an idea of a Australian movie I find interesting. Is 2040s. A lot of the solutions do exist today. If we want to improve all of that, the question is how can we all work better, and starting from very early. So that's before the planning, regulations, the planning, the procurement process. To basically achieve better planning, and what it means is affordable sustainability. And yeah, I think that's where we need to go. So hopefully we'll see in the next presentation a lot of enablers on this. Thank you for your attention.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Eric. Great having you pitch your slides today.